Welcome everybody. Welcome to ETS. Today I'm going to be talking about or going over buying low and selling high within the market using my pump and dump setups, pump and dump and pump and trap and shift, right? So just, taking a step back in the market and just looking at the overall weekly template. I'm going to go over more stuff in more videos later, like signal days, timings, and how to enter. But today I just want to show you guys like how the market works, and basically, if you stick around and watch the whole video, you'll gain a lot of knowledge from this. It's just very, very simple. I'm just buying low and I'm selling high. That's all I'm doing. I'm just using some criteria along with it. Now, I said in the previous video, the levels that I'm using is going to be our previous high of the day and previous low of the day, and my closing price. So this yellow line is going to be where price closes every single day at 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. New York time, right? Now it's gonna obviously be different if you live, on other parts of the world. But if you just convert the time zones to the time zones that I'm telling you, which is 4 p.m. Central or 5 p.m. New York time, then you can have that level, just project that level across, basically, right? Same thing with the high day and low of the day. You can honestly mark off all these levels yourself. You don't really need an indicator for this. And then again, these boxes too. This is Asia session, right? I only have a 3-hour work window within each session. So Asia, London, and New York. So any London pairs, I'll be trading in London. Any Asia pairs, I'll be trading in Asia. And any New York pairs, I'll be trading in the New York session, right? So just going over just the weekly template here, right? We're going to start off with Monday. All right, Monday, we have our opening range, right? So the opening range, I'm just going to briefly go over this, is the start of the week, right? It's the start of the week. They set new boundaries. You could see sometimes the opening range could be inside of Friday's high and low. They could pump up or they could come back down or whatever. It's just our opening range, right? They're just setting the extremes for the week, right? Tuesday, in this case, Tuesday is an inside day. I'll talk about this later, but an inside day is basically a day that's within the high and low of the previous day. All right, so that's going to be our initial balance. Now, Tuesday typically could expand the range, right? Tuesday is our initial balance, and it could expand Monday's range, right? In most cases, right? So I just want to go over again buying low and selling high here. So we have Monday opening range, they dump down, right? Tuesday stays inside of Monday's range, right? And then Wednesday finally breaks out of Monday's range, right? Closes in breakout. I'll go over that later. So when price closes below or above the high or low of the current day, and that is a close and breakout. That is one of our signals. Again, I'll go over that later. But just as the week is progressing, sitting back and waiting for price to get lower or get higher and waiting for that setup, right? So this is my typical 3-day setup that will either lock in the high or lock in the low. In this case, it'll be locking in the low of the week, right? So a lock in the low setup, right? It's still a dump and pump or a pump and dump, but the variation of it is basically like this, right? I guess you can call it really like a head and shoulders or whatever, but they make a peak formation down low, and a peak formation is basically something that looks like this. They just peak, right? Not really much explaining to do here. They just peak down and then they come back up. So they just make a peak formation and then they come back down to lock in that low or high. And this can happen on any time frame, guys. On the daily chart, the monthly chart, the 5-minute, the tick charts, any chart, this setup will happen, right? Where they'll lock in the low or lock in the high, right? And I just want to position myself where they are about to go parabolic and about to explode and actually confirm that low or high, right? And then I'll have my stop loss at the extreme of the day. It depends how the day sets up, right? And that's a very important thing too, is also how the day sets up as well, because you don't want to have a day, excuse me, that's basically ranging or whatever. You want to have a very clean looking chart, basically, right? So, excuse me, they make a peak formation on Thursday, right? And then heading into Friday, they come back down in Asia session to lock in that peak formation low, right? And then they lock in the low of the current day, right, in London, and they explode upwards, and then we have a continuation trade. But we still have our setup. And we're not buying high here, guys. I know you guys see this high of the current day here. We are not buying high here. We're not, because we're in a market that is down low, right? We're at the low of the week, and we have a setup at the low of the week, right? So I believe this this market exploded because of some kind of news event or whatever, but still, regardless if it did or not, I'm still taking the trade because my setup is there, right? So we have our, and I've talked about this in the last video, a trap and shift setup. I'll go over it one more time. So a trap and shift setup is basically where they coil sideways and they trap lower level shorts and they continue to shift the market. Now this setup happens very fast. It's a very, they're hardly, if ever, come back and actually and retest. Let me just show you one more time. So they'll coil sideways, they'll trap, and they will barely, if ever, come back and retest that that trap, because they're shifting the market, because we're at the extremes and they're shifting the market violently. Okay. And I said this in the last video too. The trap and shift setup is something that you have to that will explode, and something that you have to master, right? Now, obviously, this is going to be all skill based, but the chart will tell you where it's going to go basically before anything happens, because you have your setup. As long as you have your setup and criteria and you have an edge in the market, you're going to be golden. Okay. So anyway, we're at the low of the week, right? They made a peak formation low. They expanded the range, right? This breakout has failed because they have closed back inside of the range, okay? And then they dumped back down, like I said, to lock in the low. Came back up, they locked in the low of the current day, and then exploded in London, and luckily gave us an opportunity in the New York session. This is, by the way, guys, this is the Euro Australian dollar pair, okay? It's a cross rate, currency cross rate pair. So yeah, in the New York session, they gave you a nice coil, right? They coiled underneath the high of the current day, and if you see price coiled above or below a current high or low of the day, a previous high or low of the day, they are getting ready for an explosive move. Okay, remember that and take note of that. Okay, so if I have my high and low, I'm going to show you guys real quick here. If I have my high, my low, and you see price coiling below the high of the day, they're preparing for an explosive move to expand the range, and vice versa. Obviously, if you're at the extreme, right? In this case, we're at the extreme because we're at the low of the week, right? After they made the extreme. And vice versa, if you're at, up high and price is coiling above the low, they're preparing for an explosive move, okay, outside of the range. Now, the opposite of that would be a reversal trade, which they would be coiling outside of the low for an explosive move. Or, obviously vice versa. If they're coiling above the high of the day, they're preparing for a reversal trade, right? So in this case, we have our thesis, right? We're at the low. We have a peak formation low. They locked it in, and then they locked it in on the current day. So now we could take a trend trade continuation on in the New York session, right? So I'm just going to go to the 5-minute chart. Oops. Oh my God, I think I lost. All right, so here we're on the 5-minute chart, and we can see that we have our coil sideways, right? And then we have our dump, right? So we had a coil on the 15-minute chart, right? And then we had our dump on the 5-minute chart, our coil, and we have another coil right here on the 5-minute chart, right? Everything is fractal, guys. Whatever happens on the higher time frames will happen on the lower time frames, okay? So again, this can happen on any chart. It can happen on the 5-minute, the daily, the weekly, whatever. You'll see the same thing, okay? So anyway, we had our dump and then our coil, right? So now we have our dump, coil, and pump setup. On top of that, we're at the low of the week. We're locking in the low, and we have a trap and shift setup. So we have a setup within a setup, basically, okay? And then heading into our 8:30 window, 8:30 Central Time is going to be our New York Open. That's timings. I'm going to go over timings in another video. But our 8:30 is going to be our New York Open, and we're going to be taking this trade on the engulfment candle right at the New York Open. So New York Open is just about here. And then we have our confirmation candle, which is going to be engulfments. That's basically what I'm going to be looking for, guys. If you guys don't know what how the candles look or whatever, or you don't know what a candle pattern is, whatever, it's basically just all I'm looking for is if I'm taking a buy, it's going to be a candle that looks like this, right? An engulfment where they engulf the previous candle, or a pin hammer at the timings, right? That's all I'm going to be looking for my entries, for my candle confirmations, okay? And I have my timings, right? And then I have my levels too. I have my levels where we're below the high of the day. And then I have my setup. and I have my candle confirmation. Everything lines up. Once everything lines up, you take the trade. I'm going to show you right here where to have a profit target. So typically, I don't really trade markets that are in breakout because you know, that I would like to trade a market that I can have a target on, basically, right? And in this case, there's not really a set or a good target to have here. You could target, you know, Wednesday's high or Tuesday's high or whatever, but you know, I have a range expansion tool, right? It's basically all it is I'm going to take this box, this coil, and then I'm going to clone it, and then I'm going to clone it again, basically, right? So I have this as a tool. It's my Fibonacci tool on TradingView. You guys can just, you know, set the settings yourself. I'll post it in a second. But basically, I'll take a range expansion of this high and low here, right? And I'll target one of these levels right here. So again, it came to the extreme. We're at the low of the week. You know, this exploded. News accelerated this move potentially, but the process still applies. If this were the case, if there was no news and that were the case, I would just have, you know, these two as my targets. But you know, news accelerates the move. The process still applies, guys. All right. I'm going to show you these settings so you can copy it here. It's just my Fibonacci tool right here, right? That's all my settings. Coordinate, well, coordinates doesn't really matter. Visibility, whatever, right? So again, we're just very simple. I'm just buying low and I'm selling high with my criteria, okay? With my criteria. And you know, another important aspect too is how does price set up on the day? All right, if price sets up good on the day and I have my setup and it's a well-engineered setup, and you know, I'm like, oh shit, there it is, boom, then I'll take the trade, right? That's basically how it works in live time, right? Now in live time, for a lot of you, I bet it's going to be, you know, difficult trying to, you know, see this. But again, I just want to simplify for you guys. All you're looking for is a dump and pump or pump and dump. And where are you on the chart? So on the weekly template, where are you? Okay, are we at the low of the week or are we at the high of the week? Okay, that's all you're looking for, right? And I'll go over signals later. The signal days, they matter too sometimes. Inside day at, you know, certain extremes, and that will help you, give you an edge in the market. Okay, I hope you guys learned a lot from this video. I appreciate you watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.